very first thing is to simply say thanks, a heartfelt thanks for the invitation. Disability Federation of Ireland has been involved, I suspect, since the start 10 years ago. See, Monica, he does it to me as well. So we'll get our own back on him this time. Yeah?
He's handy.
Monica and I are just trying to get people to listen better. No, you're right. Been involved in this for the past 10 years, somewhere or other, and John O'Donnell, my colleague, is much more closer to that relationship and the work with the Carers Alliance and indeed the other organisations. There are quite a number of organisations involved. What's lovely about being here is just to get grounded again. You can get caught up with policies and strategies and legislation and the thises and the that's and the others. And in some ways, God forgive me for saying this, they distract. At another level, they're very important. So there's a bit of a tension or a quandary there. And let's just leave it there. It's like listening to the poems, the total tension between life and death, and at the same time the intertwining that is between both and the generations coming and going. I want to just cover two areas. One is about the Shannon. The Disability Federation, and the other, then I just want to make some observations if people are happy with that. The Disability Federation of Ireland has been interested in the Shannon for quite a long time, because when you look at the Constitution, it says the Shannon is to be a place primarily for people with practical experience and knowledge of particular areas of Irish life. And there are a number of panels, and I won't go into all of that mad stuff. Anyone who can't sleep some night can go in and look at it and help you, I can assure you. But the Public Administration panel is Public Administration and Social and Community Services. And you find that the nominating bodies for that panel that can put someone into the race, so can members of your office, have traditionally been exclusively disability organisations, and still are almost exclusively that. So this whole area of disability and caring has had an interest in this. We have just now actually pulled ourselves together in a sense and said, hold on a minute, why are people wearing party political badges over here representing a real civil society issue? And that's the whole impetus. Now there's an education panel, there's labour panel, there's business, there's like, fine, have all the people with real knowledge, experience and those things in there as well. So that's where this whole movement came from. Leave that there. I got votes from absolutely, totally across the political spectrum. I got votes and support from Treble A, People Before Profit, Sinn Féin, Fianna Fáil, Fine Gael, Independents. I pretty much got votes every time someone was either deemed elected or was excluded. I think that's powerful, people. I don't mean it for me, but because I went out there and I said, look, what I'm standing for here is the UN Convention on the Rights of People with Disabilities. I'm standing here to make what I describe as disability inclusion a real thing in local communities, where people can participate in their local communities. I always spoke about the number of people with disabilities, and that includes mental health in all the areas, and all the others that are affected by it. And they almost, I just round up figures, they are almost 200,000 carers. 13% of the population are people with disabilities, according to the, not the census you just took last month, but the previous one, right? I suspect that will go up. if you put one person beside every person, and that's a modest expression of the other people, of others that are drawn in to this, and go to bed every night with that first thought and wake up with that same thought. Yeah? This is a national issue. And I think Fiona said, when she was saying thanks at the end, not just in relation to disability, what you do in the disability sector, but in Irish society in general. This issue is an issue for Irish society, for this republic. It is not our issue. Yes, it is our issue in another way. It's the love and affection and the sense of duty that people have to their loved one that actually makes people stand in that space, even though they don't know from one moment to the next how they're going to do it. And when we look at the gender balance is an interesting word, in the room, you find very much what you actually find in terms of who are the carers, who are the people who do that. It is mainly women. And that's not to be negative about the work that men do, absolutely not. And so often we find in Irish society, in real life that people have or have to try and go through, that you find particularly women in their middle years, with their heads, they're like the Greek god Janus, with their heads facing both ways. They look one way and there's children. They look the other way and there's often parents, or maybe a partner or somebody. That is not their issue. That is our issue as a society. When I come back to the UN Convention, we had what was called last year, it was signed by Ireland in March 2007, just as you kicked off your first National Carers Week. We got a promise eventually last October that it would be ratified by the Irish government by the end of this year. And they published what they call a roadmap to ratification. Lovely alliteration there. What is now needed, and this is where it's important for everyone in all the contacts we have, is we need a roadmap for implementation. That strategy, forget about it being a UN convention, it says that a person with a disability can live a life with dignity, can participate to the maximum, can have their will and preference exercised. That's not easy when the people and the person that's trying to, often at the sharp end of that, is not being supported. When every simple, what would otherwise be every simple activity has to be project managed to the nth degree. Yeah? Whether it's housing that's accessible, medical support, social services supports, training, whatever it is, there's a whole range of things. That's what and I say this again about the people in the Dáil and the Shannon. All the parties and political entities have signed up to the ratification, and they even repeated it again in their manifestos during the election, and it's in the new programme for government. What will happen is this sense, I suspect, that people will say, yes, we're going to ratify, and someone will go in and sign something. Okay? But the naming of something, or the verbal or written commitment to something, is not the magic that makes it happen. I think Liam spoke earlier about what it would cost to restore the home care packages to 2008 levels, 72 million. Restoration is a word we're hearing a lot about these days. Restoration of public service pay. I don't wish to attack people who've had pretty savage impositions put on their pay. and conditions. We've had a lot of other people whose pain conditions just disappeared from them. We've had disabled people who were never in employment in the first place, and who have taken, and family support and carers taken savage cuts as well. But we have to stand up, and I think all of us in our conversations with whoever, in whatever way we can, and say restoration has to be for the social fabric as much as it has to be for people who lost pay and conditions. Rosemary talked. Sam is your son. Sam. It's okay. Don't think he's that interesting in me, is he? But you talked about first and foremost our son, and that's the note of it for everybody. The person is a member of a family, a human being, and we talk about. We have a language around care and carers, and I think we need to be careful that we don't get totally trapped in it. We are all more than simply being carers. How do you still stay the loving partner, the parent, the son, the daughter? I had an experience the last couple of years out of the run of what would normally be happening for me, where I got involved with a situation. A man in his 50s, his partner, three kids, and what was being put in front of him was a home care package. And of course his wife was naturally railing against this. She wanted him home. And one of the things I said to her was, you need to go back to them and say, you want your partner, you want your lover, you want the father of your children back in your home. That is possible. That is the right thing. And you have to actually change the narrative and the conversation to take it from where it's stuck in, and God knows you are stuck in this thing, can I have another hour, can I have a this, can I have that? But please always remember, flip that coin. It's about keeping a family and relationships intact, or bringing them back to some kind of sense of intactfulness. The last thing I will say is we talk also about service providers. And organizations often talk about themselves, whether they're public ones or voluntary or whatever, as service providers. I think we have to flip that a little bit. How am I of service? It is about what you have to offer. The tools in your bag are not the important thing. Are those tools the ones to keep your relationships, keep your family, keep your show on the road? And that's, in one sense, it's still about hours and this and that, but at the same time it actually changes the impact of it, to actually think and to express it in a slightly different way. That's really it, except to say I'm one senator. There's 218 people in the Oireachtas. An important thing for me to do is to try and infect others with this mission to make Ireland a decent place for people. And it's I won't find it now, but I'm looking for it, of course. The road less, Rosemary again, the road less travelled. But it's a road that everyone will travel at some point. Themselves or someone they love will be going down that road. So coming back to what I said, this is everyone's issue, and I hope that helps people to get away from this sense of, oh, I'm always looking for things and feeling guilty. This is Ireland's issue. This is Ireland's issue. And people are talking, and I don't want to diss it, people are talking now about the housing crisis, and that is called, absolutely called. This crisis is going on for decades, and we're so used to the stone in the shoe, or whatever way you want to put it, we think it's normal. It absolutely is normal. It's abnormal, it's horrendous, and it can be changed. And our government has said they're going to change it. Now, we can't rely on that actually happening properly. So, thanks again for the invitation. I hope I haven't violated it in terms of taking too much time. And I'm very happy for people to stay in contact with me. And I find a morning like this absolutely powerful. That's me admitting I get something out of it. Thank you.